Hi there, Honda owners. Today in your 2018 Honda Clarity, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install EcoHitch's Class 3 2-inch trailer hitch receiver. And this is what our hitch looks like when it's installed. The cross tube will be completely hidden behind the bumper, so you're just going to see the receiver here at the back. And it does have a nice black textured finish to it that really blends in with the vehicle nice, and since you only see the receiver here, I don't think it detracts from the looks of the vehicle too much. It is a Class 3 2-inch by 2-inch receiver, so it's going to be great for all of your towing needs, whether you're going to want to use this for accessories such as bike racks or cargo carriers, or if you had a small utility trailer, or maybe a really tiny John boat or something that you wanted to pull with you, you could do that as well. You'll secure your accessories to your hitch using a 5/8 inch hitch pin and clip. Now, one doesn't come included with the hitch, but we've got plenty available here at eTrailer, and you can also get locking ones to protect your investments. On bottom, we've got plate-style safety chain loops with a kind of a small opening on there. But for the size of things you'll be able to haul with this, I think you'll be okay. You can see our smaller chain has no problem going on there. And then our big guy here also can go on and off of there with no problem. So it should be okay for you. This hitch features a 300-pound tongue weight, which is the force going down on top of our receiver. And that's going to be enough for a 3-bike platform rack loaded up. Just do keep an eye out on the weights of some of your bikes and your bike racks. Some of those bike racks are quite heavy, and that tongue weight is going to be the weight of the rack plus all the things on it. So you got to do a little math there and add them up. There are some bike racks that might be a little bit closer, might exceed that 300 mark, depending on the weight of your bikes you're using. It also features a 2,000-pound gross towing capacity, which is how much that it can pull behind it. And with 2,000 pounds available, you should be able to use like a small utility trailer, maybe bring a mower around to help out some family friends or something, or if you've got a real small, like a John boat or something, you could probably pull that, maybe even a jet ski as well. Just double check the ratings on your trailer and what's on your trailer there, just to verify. And as always, I want you to verify in your vehicle's owner's manual and ensure you don't exceed any of your vehicle's towing capacities. Now I've got some measurements for you here to help you when deciding on accessories. From the center of our hitch pin hole to the edge of our rear bumper, we're right at about 3 inches. And that's important when determining if your accessories will contact the bumper when inserted into the receiver, and if they can be placed in the upright storage position without contacting the bumper. And from the ground to the top inside edge of our receiver tube, we're right at about 11.5 inches. And this is important when determining if you need a drop, a rise, or a raise shank on your accessories. And since this one sits solo, I do recommend a raise shank on your accessories. And now I'm not going to lie to you, this hitch here is going to take a little bit to put on. We are going to have to remove the fascia here at the back. So this is something that I would recommend you maybe wait until a weekend to do. Probably not a good idea to do it after work, just in case you're running any little hiccups or some snags along the way. But I would say if you follow along with us, this is something you could probably get done in your garage in about 2 hours. If you're not real familiar with it, maybe add a half an hour or so to that if you're just not real familiar with using hand tools and stuff. We'll begin our installation here at the back of the vehicle. You want to go ahead and open up the lift gate. We've got some push pins here we're going to remove, and they're going to be the same on both sides. To remove these, if you just take your little trim panel tool, you can get in between the two pieces. There is a spot, like right here, there's a little notch. You can try to utilize those notches to make it easier to get your tool in there. There we go. You're able to pop it up, and it just pulls right out of there, and there you can see that little notch. You don't have to use the notch, but if you're struggling getting your tool, the blade to fit in between the piece you need to pop up and the rest of the pin, the notch gives you a little bit easier access. So we're going to get all these removed from here. All right, and then we'll move to the middle of the vehicle. We'll need to remove the threshold here. The center piece here needs to get removed first. Just kind of grab it here at the back and just kind of do like a pinch and squeeze motion. And then you can pull that right out of there. And then the entire piece just pulls up as well. If you've got like a floor covering here, you might have to pull it back out of the way some, because we do need to get underneath of it. So we're pulling this up as well, that floor covering. And then we should be able to get under it to pull it up. So I moved all the stuff out of the way there. There was a lot of stuff in the little compartment, just making it more difficult. Just get your hands underneath of it though, and then it just pops right up like that. And we can pull that out of there as well. Now we can pull our piece back here. We're going to be removing the taillights on both sides. So you can just kind of peel back this fabric now. It just kind of pulls away like that. And there's our taillight connector, and then there's the little nut. There's 4 of these that holds this on, so we'll need to remove those. I'm going to unplug the connector by pushing in on the little release tab there. We can get that unplugged. And now we'll get the nuts removed. We're going to use an 8mm socket to do so. And again, there are going to be a total of 4 of these. So now we're going to remove the light. It's just going to pull straight rearward. There are some tabs here on the inside you're going to have to release though. There's one right here, and when we look at this one, this tab you'll need to pull towards the center of the vehicle to release. And then there's also a tab here at the top that you're going to need to push down to release. So it's kind of strange the way you have to press on these tabs to get it to release, but you should be able to pop it out of there. There we go. And then it just kind of pops right out like that. And then these are those tabs that I was talking about there. So you can see this one, you have to push down a little bit, and that one you got to pull away like that, just a little bit. And then we're just going to remove the other side the same way. I believe on this side there is an additional tab, so just be careful when you're removing this one. Okay, we got the other side removed. There was not an additional tab, it was just a little slot there that made me think that there was. So it removes basically the same way for the other side. All right, we got our tail light out of the way. Right here underneath the tail light, you got a fastener we're going to remove with a T35 Torx. Just zip that guy out of there. Same thing over on the other side. Now we're going to head to our wheel well. We'll need to remove these 2 fasteners here. I'm not sure about it, but it sure looks to me like this is going to get in our way. So we're going to remove this mud flap. This is something that's probably not on every vehicle. It was probably an option. So you may not have this, but if you do, I just recommend removing it. There's 4 screws that hold it in place. There's these 3 here on the side, and then there's 1 underneath. We're gonna just get all of those out of there and get this thing out of the way. Because of the way it wraps around the inside here, it looks like it's gonna make it really difficult to get this fascia off with it here. After we got those 3 out, we just took the one on bottom. The one on bottom is actually a plastic screw, so after you loosen it up like that, pull the entire pin out of there for that lower one that's located there. And then we can just pull that thing off. You can dump the dirt out of that and set it aside. And then we'll get these 2 removed to here. And then afterwards, we'll do this over on the other side. So now underneath the vehicle, we're gonna have several push pins we're gonna need to remove, just going all the way around the edging there. To remove these, you'll use a flat-bladed screwdriver. You can use your trim panel tool, but I find the way these ones are, you're actually a little safer with this than the trim panel tool, just because the pin is kind of flush with the outer shell, so it's hard to get under there with the trim panel tool. And since this is underneath the vehicle, it only takes a year or so for dirt and debris and moisture and everything else to really just take a toll on these plastic pins. They get extremely brittle and very difficult to remove because of the dirt in there. So just kind of take your time with it and work your screwdriver around it. You might want to even spray it with some silicone spray or something to help lube it up, just because they get so stiff from the dirt. There we go, we got that one removed though. We're just going to repeat that process to get the remaining ones removed. If you have some damaged pins, we do sell pin kits here at eTrailer by the manufacturer, so you can pick up the Honda kit. That'll come with a bunch of variety of different pins that you can use to replace any damaged ones. All right, so this next step here, we're going to be removing this whole rear of your fascia here. I highly recommend you have an extra set of hands with this, but if you do want to do it yourself, if you just don't have access to somebody to give you a hand, I can give you a tip here on how to do that. So we're going to start here at this front seam right there. You're going to grab behind the seam and just kind of work it out. Once we get to this point right here, you'll want to stop if you're doing it by yourself. You're going to want to go over to the other side of the vehicle and pop that side out. And when you're popping this side out over here, you want to make sure you keep your body present here in the middle. So we've got it popped up to that point on this side as well. And now we want to keep our body here, because once you go to pop it out at this point, it kind of just falls right off of there. So you got to be prepared for it because it'll just fall right off of there on you. So we're going to grab it here. We're just kind of working our fingers up, and I'm holding it here to make sure it can't fall off. And then we're just going to kind of, again, keep our body here in the middle, holding it. We're going to do the same thing to this side. And then we're just going to walk it away, double checking for any kind of electrical wiring that may be present, but I don't see anything in there. So it looks like we're good. We're just going to set this off to the side where it won't get damaged. Now we're going to remove our bumper beam here. We've got 3 bolts on each side we'll need to remove. We're going to use a 14mm socket to do so. Now after I remove this first bolt here, I like to take it and just thread it right back in there. It's probably not necessary on this particular vehicle because if we look here in the center, it's got a little tab there to catch it. But I know if I got this a couple of threads in, there's no chance when I'm taking out the rest of my fasteners that this side's going to fall off on me while I'm trying to work there. So now we're just going to remove the rest with our 14mm socket here. If the little foam falls off of there, it's no big deal. Don't worry about that. We can pick it up later. All right, so we've got them all removed except for these last 2. I'm going to zip that out and just support it, but again, it slid right onto that hook. So it looks like it probably wasn't necessary here to leave these last couple, but just for safety measures, I'm just so used to doing it. All right, so at this point now, we should be able to just kind of lift it off those tabs and set this piece aside. The electrical connector here for our sensors here at the back is going to be kind of right where our hitch needs to go. So we need to get this out of the way. So I'm just pushing it to the side so I can get my trim panel tool under it. And you're probably going to need some kind of screwdriver or something. There's some release tabs back up in here that you got to press to get this to pop out. You might be able to do it with your finger. I'm not quite strong enough to do it with just my finger, so we'll use the screwdriver. There we go. Get that guy to pop out of there. And then we're going to flatten that tab right there. To prevent from damaging anything, I'm going to unplug this connector. And I'm just going to kind of tuck it up here for a minute. This way it's kind of out of my way while I'm flattening that. And I think I'm just going to probably hit it probably at this corner to try and kind of make it tip this way, and then I'll flatten it down. Now I'm going to hit this with just a little bit of light spray paint. You can use clear coat, whatever. It's behind the bumper. You're not going to see it, but we did knock off some of the metal there. So just to pre-protect it, we'll just put a little bit of that on there. So now we can go ahead and set our hitch into position. It'll actually hold itself right onto the hooks there. I would next just double check here. There's a good chance that you don't need to modify this pan here. Ours clears perfectly and we can't push it back any further. We can see we're already bottomed out against the metal. So it looks like we clear here. If you do have some pressure here, you may need to make some minor relief cuts just around this to make sure that it's not pushing on the pan, but we look like we're going to clear just fine there. So the next thing we're going to do is take the bumper beam that we had just removed. We're going to put that back in place and lift it over top of this and then screw it on there. You're also not going to use the fasteners that we took out. We're going to use these new ones that come in our kit. And if you look on there, we've got a flat washer. Well, we got a lock washer first, followed by a flat washer on there. I recommend preparing all your bolts and having them sat up here so that way when you're trying to hold these pieces together, you got everything kind of right in arm's reach. So we're just going to line this up. Pull down a little bit on some pieces to get it to slide back in there. And we can slide a bolt through, and then you might have to lift up just a little bit here on the hitch to get it to line up, and then we'll get our bolt started in there. All right, we got that side started. I'm going to get one started on the other side. And that'll make it a whole lot easier to get the rest of the hardware installed once we've got one on each side, because then there's no chance that either of our pieces here can fall off. All right, and now it's just inserting the rest of those, and then we can snug them down once we get them all inserted, but make sure you insert all of them by hand first. It's a terrible time to strip out a bolt when you're so close to the end. All right, now we'll take a 19mm socket and snug all these down. And if these fell off of there while you were removing them, they just slide back into place. They're not a real snug fit, so I'm sure they probably fell off of there. And now we can go back and torque all of our hardware to the specifications outlined in our instructions. So before we put our fascia back on, we do need to make some minor modifications. There is a little small diagram in your instructions. I've gone ahead and marked it out per that diagram. So now we need to trim this out. I'm just checking to make sure there's no kind of wiring or anything there. There wasn't when we disconnected it, but it's always good to make sure you're not going to cut anything important. So we're just going to use our snips to trim this out. You could use a cutoff wheel or whatever you've got available. I prefer the snips just because you can get a pretty clean cut with them, and then we can hit a file to it to clean it up after that. With your cutoff wheels, a lot of times you're melting the plastic, and then to me there's more cleanup involved with that tool. All right, so we got that cleaned up, or we got that cut out, and now you can clean it up. You could also use a razor knife. Those also work pretty well for just kind of knocking off the stragglers and making it clean. We'll also take a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a rag to clean off the marks that we made here with the paint stick. Yeah. So now we got it all cleaned up. We're ready to go back over to the vehicle and we can reinstall it. Again, I would recommend an extra set of hands to help you snap this back on. So that way when you're trying to put this back on, you're not scraping up the sides of the vehicle. I am going to grab myself an extra set of hands for this, even though we took it off as one person. Going on is, to me, where you're really going to have an increased chance of scratching the vehicle trying to get it on there. All right, so we got our extra set of hands here. We're just going to lock it into position, keep the outsides open and away so we don't scratch anything. And then that should just kind of fit right around there. And we'll just kind of work it up. There it is. So check your bottom paneling. If your under shield's hitting there, you're not going to be able to go all the way back on. And then we can get it to just line up like that. And then it just kind of taps right back into place. So at this point now we just need to reinstall our fasteners in reverse order. But if you had mud flaps here, I highly recommend cleaning this off before you reinstall them. They'll fit better, and then you're going to reduce any chance of causing scratches to the paint. You can see there's already been almost like a little bit of rust or something starting to occur right there. So yeah, just get those cleaned up before you put them back on. It'll make a big difference in them fitting more easily, and just looking nicer once you've got it on there. Because if it doesn't line back up perfectly with all that dirt, you're going to see that dirt and it's not going to look very nice. And that completes our installation of EcoHitch's Class 3 2-inch trailer hitch receiver on our 2018 Honda Clarity.